Hello, and welcome to International History for Chapter 1.4, which is just we more focus on USA becoming a world power because USA is very powerful today, as we know, and we haven't talked about it yet. So, oh, sorry. Hello? Okay, let's get into that. So, let's start with first, um, you know, so the way the USA came to be was, Christopher Columbus looking for India, and instead of finding India, he found a whole other continent which had Native Americans on it, which were less advanced, so no one knew about it, blah, blah. They came here, 13 colonies. That's US history. But let's talk about the US expansion. Okay, so first let's use a smaller marker. So, well, obviously not there, but the little colonies were here, right? As you can see, this area were the colonies. And so they're like, let's expand all the way, right? Which is a very big part in American culture because it was literally, they were all just exploring new lands. Like, that's like crazy. Like, imagine if right now we found a new continent. Insane, right? And so most of these were bought. These two were like, okay, annexation because they took it from Mexico, and then this one was a war where they just killed all the Mexicans because they're less advanced. This was a purchase. This was a big purchase. This they get in the Treaty of Paris. There's a lot of treaties of Paris. I'm pretty sure this was a war, and then this is another treaty, as you can see. Oh, and this was a treaty from Spain. Um. Oh, and they also had this idea of manifest destiny. Okay, so the reason why they were able to take all this land, I'm not sure if you guys realize how massive the USA is, but there's a lot of space here, guys. So, Manifest Destiny was just kind of like, oh, like they were set to take over this land and their quote unquote like destiny anyways. So they're just gonna take it forcefully because what else would they do? Let the people that live there live there? No. But that's what Manifest Destiny is. So that's how they get all of this land. Obviously, we split into borders separately. Actually, fun fact, the reason why the USA, if you look at a real map of the USA, actually, let's search that up right now. If you look at USA maps, like, you see this one, okay? You can tell that the USA is, like, on this kind of side of the USA. We're pretty evenly split between, like, this, like, most, like, except for, like, California, which is this. We're pretty, like, it's split into even blocks, but here we're into, like, random groups. That's because we expanded this way, okay? We expanded, okay, north, east, okay, never east, soggy waffles. We expanded west. So that's why these territories are kind of, like, more wonky, and then these states are more like blocks. If you guys look at a natural American thing, but anyways, that was just a little fun fact for you guys. So the closing of the frontier. So the frontier isn't like the border of anything. Closing of the frontier just meant that they got all of the land that they could, right? So there was no more land to like look at because everything else was already owned by like Mexico and Canada. So they couldn't do more. They couldn't expand more, right? So what they did is like, this was kind of like a lot of Americans were pretty like bummed out after this because they started with the Homestead Acts, which basically was just like, hey guys, all the lands we took from the Native Americans is free, guys. Please go move on it, because yeah, that sounds crazy. They had a bunch of lands for free, and there was a bunch of tax cuts and everything because they wanted people to own land. It's like, why would they want people to own land? Normally the government's greedy. Who said that? But the reason why is because they needed an economy, and the only way they would get that would be by farmers because people need food to eat. So they were giving out land pretty much for free. Whoever like rents the land first could just kind of take it and own it. Yeah. That's what the Homestead Act is. It's really cool. But that was the closing of the frontier. This is when Americans start to like, okay, now we actually have to, like, we got the land, let's start developing on it. Now I know there's a lot of words on this slide. I normally don't like to put words on this slide. I don't like to make you guys read, but we're gonna have to because this is literally discovering of a whole new country after industrialization, okay? So, we're not discovering of a whole new country, but industrialization hitting a whole continent. Not a whole continent, but a whole country, right? So, let's talk about the economy for a bit because the USA economy is very important in history because you're going to see later since they're in World War 1, but they're not necessarily in it for most of the time, they have the strongest economy. So, it's really important to pay attention to this part. So, first, let's start coal, iron, and oil, which we know Americans love. When they first came here, there's a lot of raw materials of coal, iron, and oil, which are very important for factories and stuff to make stuff. So that was a very good raw material that they found here. They also had population growth because they had a lot of British people coming here. Because remember, the USA was free. They were freedom, yay! So they had a lot of people coming here. Can I? Jesus Christ, it's so hard to do this. Anyways, freedom. So a bunch of people came here, which also grew their economy a bunch because they had more people, more things to make, more food to produce, blah blah. Anyways, they also found out when they came here just how to mass produce everything. Since we had so much land and so much coal and iron and oil, it was so much easier for factories to be made. And obviously they also mass produce a lot of food and farming techniques, which was really good. We made a bunch of big machines and tractors and stuff, and it became very easy to make everything basically. um so that was really important, because that helps with the population growth. These two, they go together. The lack of government regulation, which this isn't really a good thing, but you know how child labor, yeah. So child labor isn't allowed anymore, but so you know how that is like a regulation because they have to have good, whoever owns a factory has to have good working conditions. That didn't really exist during this time. So people were just getting paid pennies. So it was actually yeah, there was just a lot of money going around. So it was very easy for people to just get a job, and it was very easy for companies to just make a bunch of money by paying them less. Um, oh, and that also goes into the next one, which is the development of large scale corporations and businesses and stuff. That was very simple because this is literally the start of everything. So whoever made stuff first made the stuff first. Imagine being the first car producer in America. That's crazy. Make a bunch of money. Anyways, so the development of one of the most we have because since the USA is insanely big, when we made railroads over here, it was insane. Okay, so we have one of the biggest. Well, at the time we had. I don't know if it's still actually, but one of the biggest railroads, which made trading between its own land a lot easier and travel easier, and so people, yeah. So that boosts the economy a lot too. Um, and okay, it was also really easy during this time to make investments. Right now we have a lot of big companies, so if you make a $10 investment, that might be 0.000, a lot of zeros, 0.1% of a company, right? But there, it was literally the beginning of everything. So it was very easy to just start and get in investments and start new businesses and make a bunch of big businesses, right? So, and it was also easily done to banks, right? And that was the first time that this was introduced. So that also boosts the economy way up. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys are realizing this. Most of these things are just completely, the economy is going shooting straight up. Just wait until the Great Depression hits. This all goes down. But we'll talk about that later. Anyways, okay. Last two things is stock market. Very important. Because later we will get the Wall Street crash. But don't worry about that yet, guys. So the stock market was also very important because it was very big in America. Wall Street, New York. Whew, insane. And tariffs. Tariffs, if you guys don't know this, tariffs are just taxes on imported goods. So let's say if we're buying food from China, we actually would have to pay an extra tax if we had tariffs, which we do currently. like depending on how high the tariffs are, it's like a some like percent, right? Like let's say like 4% tariff, so you would have to pay 4% more for that food, which like how does tariffs boost the economy if you have to pay more? Well, it just makes more people want to make more stuff in America, so it turned well, America was really not America, but the USA was really isolationist during this time. So all of these stuff, like all of these big things all happening at once was crazy. So the economy was very high, and it's like because of tariffs, there was also a bunch of American production here. Yeah, so that boosted the economy like crazy. Anyways, let's turn to the Spanish American War now. So here we have this is Spain, okay? That's backwards. This is Spain, and then this is Cuba as a bebe. And you might be wondering why is Spain evilly holding Cuba? Well, because Spain had a lot of control over Cuba. And Cuba is like, okay, imagine like, okay, that's Florida, and like America is like here, right? I'm not sure you guys can see that well up there, but okay, so America is like here. This is a big thing up here, right? Cuba is literally like right here. And so that was like their closest like country that they could like well, okay, for the USA, Cuba was really important because they had a lot of their own like raw materials and that's who they traded with the most because it was literally right next to them, like insanely close. So Spain was like taking over Cuba, and because Cuba's also really small, so it was really like easy to take control over it because it's literally an island. So Spain was taking like control over them, and USA didn't like this because the Cuba was too important to the like United States economy. So the Spanish American War happened, and after that, not only did they get Cuba, in the Treaty of Paris, when the war ends, the USA wins. They get Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Okay, they got all of this. Philippines actually, they ended up getting like here, like here's the Philippines. They end up getting pretty independent. Like after, not pretty independent. I mean, like they literally win their own independence. So, if you want to know who they kept, not the Philippines, but just know that they were there. Okay, they were part of the treaty, right? Because that happens later. But in the Treaty of Paris, they went over Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Guam, the Philippines, which just boosts their economies even more because now they have more territory to trade to, and more places to put factories, and more businesses. Yeah. Now let's get to World War One, guys. World War One. Now, like I said earlier, if you guys remember, USA wasn't that involved into World War One because, well, it was mostly European. Okay, first let me give you guys, because I'm sure you guys have heard of World War One, but if it's never been explained to you, you guys are taking notes for this one. Okay, so it started in Austria-Hungary. Okay, so what happened was like a king of Austria-Hungary was killed by a Serbian nationalist. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Serbian nationalist. And so this is what happened. Russia declared war on Austria-Hungary. Germany declared war on Russia slash France. Germany went through Belgium, but Belgium had an alliance with the British, which caused the British to get involved. Right? So everyone was fighting, but the USA stayed out of it. So why are we talking about this now? You'll see. So I'm not sure if you guys remember this guy here. He's Germany, right? And then we have the USA over here, right? Okay. So USA is pretty isolationist during this time. So they just wanted to be by themselves, in their own bubble. They don't care what's happening in like this side of the world, right? But you see, the USA does like I said earlier, the USA is supporting like Britain and like other European countries through like sending them boats of like care packages. Like care packages, I mean like literally medical supplies, food, because well, World War One cost a bunch of money. So much. Over a billion euros. Over 6 billion euros actually. in war reparations because like of how insane that like war was, because World War One was it wasn't who won, it was literally just who could last the longest in war, which means they all lost their money. So the USA was sending a bunch of like ships over there, and Germany didn't like that because Germany. Okay, well, we'll talk about this more again later, but there's the Allied powers and non-Allied powers, and Germany's not like, okay, Germany doesn't like Britain, and the USA was helping Britain, okay? And so what Germany did is it would fight, well, it would scare off all of the USA ships that were going to Britain. So Germany would like, hey, we're gonna attack this ship, and then the USA would be like, okay, fine, and they would retreat. But there was one time where Germany didn't. Oh, sorry, I have to. Anyways, there was one time where Germany didn't warn the USA, and like 100, I think like 122 Americans were killed. 120 Americans were killed. The USA does not take Americans getting killed taken lightly. Actually, sorry guys to confuse you, but if you go back, the Spanish-American War, before the war even happened, there was 12 Americans got killed on the boat on the way to Cuba, and the government didn't blame it on Spain, but the the American people did. They're really mad. Americans do not take other Americans getting killed lightly, okay? So that just got the USA really mad, but they were like, oh, they still didn't want to get involved in this big war because they knew they were going to lose a bunch of money. They were doing great during this time because similarly to Japan that we talked about last time, they just kind of stayed in the back. I mentioned this last video. They stayed in the back and just kind of, while everyone else's economy was going down, they were supplying everyone with, food, water, necessities, and like other stuff. So their economies were boosting. They did not want to step into the war until, well, that boat went down. But the real reason why they got into the war is the Zimmerman telegraph. Telegraph. I didn't mean to spell like that. Sorry. Anyways, the Zimmerman telegraph. So what basically happened was that telegraphs were sent during this time, and telegraphs could it's complicated like technology stuff, but they could be like dropped in on, like eavesdropped by other countries if sent by accident. So guys, remember, this is Germany, okay? So Germany, Jesus Christ, was like, hey Mexico, do you want to maybe attack the USA? Like, they proposed the idea of attacking the USA. And if we go back to our little USA map, Mexico's right here, okay? So the USA took that as the final, like, okay, we're joining the war, because they overheard this telegraph, and it was translated, and they were like, okay, fine, we're joining the war, and we're going against Germany. So the USA's impact on World War One is that they ended up joining Britain and France, right? Because Britain is like their evil dad that they have a weird relationship with, and then France is the USA's best friend right now. So they're helping them during a war, and the USA is actually the main reason why they win the war. But they join World War One kind of really late, so their economy doesn't go down a bunch actually. But yeah, so they support Britain and France during World War One. And so that's basically all we have for today's video. If you guys need any help, you can always comment on my videos if I need to explain something further. And you can always correct me if I accidentally say something wrong. I'm very sorry in person. But that's all we have for today, guys. Bye, and see you guys next time for chapter 2, because this is the end of chapter 1. Yay, we finished it. Bye, guys.